Hello, hello, most beautiful stars. Hello, hello. I am Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light, and this message is about the Great Crack. If you are new here to Stars of the Morning Light, I've actually mentioned the Great Crack for the past few years. I started this channel in 2021, and it's come up periodically, but this episode right now, live stream, I'm going to break it down. What is the Great Crack? I will also, if someone comes into the chat, I normally try to say hello to them. I'm not going to do that during this live, so I can just get everything out that needs to be said. So, welcome, settle in. If you are in the chat, enjoy yourself, talk amongst each other. Um, so I have mentioned this, and I also posted that I'd be live like 2 weeks ago. Forgive me, the big 250th 4th of July celebration was happening, and there was lots to cover at my house. And we blew a lot of stuff up. I do hope more film comes for everybody to see soon. So how I'm going to kind of keep going back to something we can all relate to and to really explain as far as what humanity will experience, to really explain what's going on. And that is an ending and a beginning and an ending. And I'm going to relate it to the majority of us because this channel is only for adults. We've all had some kind of relationship, some kind of deep emotional connection with another person. It could have been a spouse, a partner, whatever kind of relationship. It could even been a very deep friendship. That there was a beginning and an ending, and an ending and a beginning all at the same time. And so I'm going to use that to really break down what this experience is for us humans, to put it into context that we can relate to. Because we oftentimes, when we hear things like the beginning and the end and the beginning, right? We don't really know how to sort that in our mind, especially when we're going to start talking about something very, very big. So I want to inform people I'm going to back it way back to 2018 real quick, and then I'll get into it. In 2018 is when I actually found out about the Great Crack. I didn't ask about it. I didn't even want to know about it. I had already known about that other big thing that we all went through together on this beautiful planet recently, in 2019, 2020, you know. Um, I had already known about that, and I tried to tell as many people as I could, which was probably about 5 people, to tell you the truth, because I didn't have this channel yet. And so I was not looking for anything, and I was not desiring any kind of information. I was not. But sometimes, even when I'm not trying to connect, not trying to communicate with any Akashic records or anything really, things come through. And then because things come through, I have to proceed in finding out information. And so I believe it was 2018, y'all, I was just going to bed. I was seriously just this has been what happens to me since I was a child. I was just going to sleep, trying to close my eyes, try to maybe meditate a little bit to fall asleep, and all of a sudden, boom, this vision of the earth and what I will go into detail about. And of course, now I come to, and I immediately, what is that? And I was informed that they, to me, refer to it as the Great Crack. So it is, Edgar Cayce talked about it, about hit the map that Edgar Cayce would talk about, and I'm going to be referencing Edgar's material I won't read it. I'm just going to talk about Edgar for at times through this. Um, his map is for where we are today, 100 years later. It's not necessarily as accurate, but very, very similar. And what I've decided is I'm going to print out a image of definitely the United States, and I'm going to color like a 5-year-old what will be submerged underwater, and maybe what islands will no longer be there, but new islands and all sorts of things. I'm going to color like a 5-year-old, and I'm then going to take a picture of that and post it here. And I'll post this link with it as well for future audiences. Because it's not necessarily exactly the same of what you would find out there for who references the Edgar Cayce map, as to what I'm at, even up to yesterday. So yesterday I connected again, and I definitely was like, okay, if I'm doing this message, where are we at with it? Because I want to inform people that future aspects in life, in your personal life, in the collective life, in the life of the earth, of celestial beings, even. hmm Nothing in the future is written in stone. It's not. So I had to double check before I gave this message. Where are we at with things? Um, so in 2018, uh, when that vision came through, it was told to me, it was referred to as the Great Crack. So I have been referring to it as the Great Crack since then. And it is it is part of the ending and the beginning of the cycle. So for years on this channel, I've been talking about the ending and the beginning, the ending and the beginning, that we are entering into that. And beloveds, really think about this. Think about how we're moving out of the Piscean age, right, into the Aquarius age, right? Everybody talks about the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. Well, to go from the Piscean age to the age of Aquarius, that's going to take some action. That's going to take some stuff going on. It really is. The Piscean age is what we've known for so long of a very structured. That's the word that I'm going to use. They actually use a different word. They use the word like rules and authorities and, things of that nature, governments, right? That is very Piscean. Aquarius is not that. Aquarius is humanity driven, community driven, communication in all forms, because we're going to talk about communication. All these things freely, right? So much freely. Um, and what's beautiful, Aquarius is referenced as the water bearer. Well, carrying the water. And that's in reference of the new earth that has a lot of water, but also the ideal that can hold the human emotions in a healthy manner because we're not under rigid rule. I mean, that's when I see and I witness everyone out there, that's what I see them crying out for. Some kind of balance to their emotions because it's a constant reacting and acting to the rules and regulations. So there will always be some kind of shift going from one to another, but shifts are gradual. They are gradual. So let's go back to um, the whole breakup, right? The whole breakup. You've been in a relationship. So I'm talking about you personally, because we've all been there. You've been in a relationship, and if you've been in a long-term relationship, you might have to go back in your mind and remember, right? You've been in a relationship and for a few months, maybe even a few years, but definitely a few months, a few weeks, what have you. You can see the foreshadowing of like, this relationship I think is going to end. I think an ending is coming. I think an ending, you can see, you know, maybe the coldness from the partner, maybe the not responding to texts, what have you, right? Every relationship is got its own set of drama. But you can start seeing the foreshadowing into this relationship is going to end. Even if there's a beautiful communication and it's both are in agreement, it's still you can foresee because that's how you get to that agreement. Something's not working. Something is not okay. And we've exhausted all that we can. Let's just end this. So we end, right? The relationship ends. Well, then you're in this time frame that is so sincere in the human transformation with all of our complexities and our emotions and our thoughts and our fears and our doubts and our worries, but also our joy and our happiness because the relationship wasn't working out. All of this, it takes a time frame of when that ends to really start shifting into, oh, I mean, the beginning happens right when it ends. That's how it works. Something ends, something begins. Something begins, and it leads to an end. And we've been on a trek for a very long time leading to this end. But at the same time, it's a beginning. But it's hard to acknowledge the beginning because we're in the rubble and we're in the heartache of a breakup. When in fact, the beginning left the moment you walked away from that conversation, the moment you moved out, what have you, right? That's the moment that the beginning started. But it might take a long time to really process it, to restructure yourself, to get used to waking up alone instead of having a partner next to you. Get used to planning meals again for one instead of two. It takes a while to adjust. And not just adjust, but kind of form anew into, well, what do I want? If that wasn't working for me, what do I want? Do I even want anything right now? What do I want to experience? All these choices that are now presented and open because there's no more of that binding relationship. So keep that in your mind whenever I'm talking about the ending and the beginning, that we've all actually experienced this. Because then we're going to expand that out into the concept of the collective within this message about the great crack. So in 2025, I looked it up. In 2025, I did a yearly Akashic message, and that message was very long and broad, and there was a lot in it. And if anybody wants me to send it to them, I do have it in PDF. Email me at starsofthemorninglight at I can send you a copy of it, of the Akashic reading for 2025 and even 2026. But 2025 like really started going into stuff. 2024 did as well. 2024 was more about the entering into the native prophecies. And that's what we are. I mean, the natives have been talking about this for a very long time. But in that reading of the 2025 yearly Akashic message, there was a very short sentence that said, a cycle will end in 32 years. A cycle will end in 32 years. So if that was, they said it in January of 2025, that means 32 years from then is 2057. That is not when the great crack is going to happen. I'll tell you when that might. Well, I have now confirmed it. I don't know how many times over. It has not changed. And I'm hoping it does, but que sera, sera. 2057. Keep that in your mind in reference when we start talking about the effects of humanity, like a relationship, that transition time. Because there's a few transitions before the great crack even happens. And then the great crack is going to happen, and then we gotta transition through that. And that's when the cycle truly ends. Kinda like when you get through the heartache, you learn to stand on your own again, and then you choose to be with someone else, and then, hey, you meet somebody else. That's when the cycle of the transition ends, when all of it ends and the beginning with someone new happens. So, let's get into it. Um, so once again, I was told about this in 2018. I have mentioned it here multiple times when I've been rambling about whatnot. Um, the cycle will end in 32 years. I was given in 2025, so that would make 2057. There have been people who have asked me, am I going to still be alive when the great crack happens? They're especially thinking about their children, so I do appreciate them and their question. Most of the time, depending on the age of the person, I have to tell them, "Yeah, you'll be alive," or I definitely will say, "Yeah, your grandkids will be here, when this happens." But let's talk about what's going to happen prior to all of this, and I wanna make it very clear right now, when we finally get to talking about the great crack, because 'cause we're in the precursor of it, and honestly, the precursor is probably gonna be a hell of a lot worse, because it's where we build, it's where we learn. Yeah, everybody loves talking about how we learn. That's where we're gonna learn how to survive the great crack if we handle all the pre-phase prior, which we're in right now. We're in the pre-phase of the great crack. Um, so I don't know if you'll be alive or not. I don't know. And it will always be the beloveds before yeah, I do want to say this. This is because of the pole shift. It hands down, it's been very clear to me over and over and over again. This is because of the pole shift. Even just yesterday, they said this, the Akashic Records. The Great Crack is due to the pole shift, all at once after years of shifting. I know I've mentioned that before, I'll explain. Meteors come faster due to the imbalance of the Earth's magnetic grid. So it's not necessarily like a big comet hits. Um, think of like the Ice Age, right? Everybody thinks that was due to a big comet. The Akashic has made it very clear to me over and over again that whenever this has happened, and we've talked about it here in different episodes with ancient scriptures, beloveds, of different stories and scriptures from different religions, different groups of people, different tribes, all of it. They all have talked about some kind of big calamity. It could be from the flood, it could be the we know that the Arctic, right, was once this beautiful green luscious land, and the humans that lived there were amazing, right? Who then moved into like the Palestine area, the Persian area, let's say. We've covered this at Stars in the Morning Light. All of that is true. And all of that has occurred, even Atlantis, beloveds, even Atlantis. For everybody who loves the ideas of Atlantis and are intrigued by Atlantis, and I'm always kind of that jerk that's like, which Atlantis? Because there's been multiple Atlantises, which I don't know if you can make that plural. There's been multiple ones. They have always said repeatedly, it is because of the pole shifts. Though, that's not good enough. It tends to not be good enough, right? It just seems to not be good enough. We want something bigger. We want drama. We want celestial beings and wars with aliens and all this stuff. And we want some big story. It's the shift of the poles, which is the biggest thing that's ever going to happen on this beautiful earth that we live. And so we're in that shift. We've been in this shift. We've been in this shift since the 90s. And this is why Edgar said it repeatedly in readings as people would ask questions. He said in 1998 is when things are going to start really shifting. He meant the pole. Like by the late 90s, scientists were like, whoa, what's going on? That's when it was like, hey, this global warming, quote unquote, what is happening in the Arctic? What's happening here? That's when all the scientists started writing books about it. That's when people were talking about it. It's the poles. So I have also referenced in the past. Imagine we're shifting. We're shifting slowly. We're transitioning. We're shifting slowly, slowly. Those ice caps are melting. Lots of water. We're shifting. We're shifting. But if you think of the earth, and this is not is the earth round, is the earth flat argument, because it's neither, to tell you the truth. But if you see it as like a circle and maybe like a clock, right? So let's say we were at 12 and we've been shifting and we're shifting and we're shifting and we're shifting and we're headed into 3 o'clock. Well, that's going to start rattling some stuff. That's pretty mighty that we have inched our way to 3 o'clock. And there will come a time that there will be major drops, major drops, major drops, because we have to get to 6 o'clock. If we're shifting and moving the entire thing, so there's still gravity. There is. It still operates within us, it operates around us, and it's that magnetic field that they just mentioned. So when those big jump kind of shift downwards, 3 o'clock, boom, 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 right? To truly the shift of the poles. Well, what they just said, the magnetic field of the earth, which we are attached to, we have our own magnetic field that is attached to the magnetic field of the earth. How we operate in this human body of form is very similar as to how the earth operates. And it's a symbiotic relationship. This is why we talk about keeping our vibes up. We want our vibes up to help her through this, because we don't really need those magnetic fields to drop, to not to any um vast vast drop, let's say. So they will become weak. Her magnetic field will become weak. I'm not saying it's going to go away entirely. That's not what I'm saying. And when I say drop, I mean as far as the magnetic field, which is always attached to her, think like a torus field, right? That's why people think it's round, is because she is a Taurus. She has a beautiful Taurus field around her. I've taught this before here in Stars of the Morning Light and in personal classes. And we have the same, right? We operate the same. And we are connected to her and symbiotic back and forth. That energy field, though, of hers, because of the shift of the poles, it'll become weaker. And there'll be some pockets. And within that, meteors that we normally travel through, by the way, we travel through like meteors all the time. We're probably traveling through a bunch of them right now. They're just around. It's the junk of the cosmos, like somebody called Garbage Man, but they're always around. but it's usually actually our magnetic field that kind of deters them. It will be weak, and there'll be holes and pockets and whatnot. So there will be more meteor action. But the great crack is not caused by a great meteor. It is simply one of those massive drops from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And it's really one of the end game ones. Like, woof. Okay, we just shifted. That will bring on the great crack. And they are emphasizing for me to tell you it has always been that. It has never been anything different. But man, do we got stories. We got such because what we're doing at the time, when she starts rattling and rocking and rolling and things start shifting and changing, we just really don't know what to do with ourselves. And so we tend to go to war. We tend to fight with one another. We tend to be very insecure and start stockpiling. Trust me, stockpiling ain't nothing new. Um, we tend to do all these things. It's that self-preservation of me that has humans doing the most wildest stuff during these times. Not not trusting whatsoever. And that we will talk about at the very end. So, this will always be about the polls. It is always about her. I mean, this is our home. I don't care where your quote unquote, what I refer to as your point of origin, as in, I don't, wherever you originated from, you beautiful star, you could have just been a star out there in the cosmos. You could have come from another planet. You could have materialized in the ether somewhere. Someone dreamt you up. I don't care about your point of origin. All of us have been living here for a very, very long time. We chose to live here on Earth for the Earth and our fellow man. And just because we forgot through all of our lifetimes, I suggest we don't continue to forget because we're seeking to know where we originally came from. This has been our home for millenniums, over and over and over again. This has been our home. So this is where you're from. This is Earth. This is where you're from. And we love her and we love one another. So then they said, they said, it's the polls. It's always been the poll. And then they said, because I had to ask them. So you're going to hear a lot of talk in the next, definitely through 2026, 2027. You're going to hear a lot of talk about 2032. 2032. And there's going to be some out there that talk about the earth changes within 2032. And I'm not saying we're not going to have that. I mean, we're gearing up right now. California is going to have a pretty significant earthquakes with the shock waves or what, I don't know what they're referred to. It's going to like go right up that state. And that's coming pretty soon. We will have a volcano here in the States, and I am referencing most of the states. We're going to have poor Kentucky. Y'all, if you haven't ever been to Kentucky, it is actually one of the most amazing states energetically because of the ley lines there. Energetically, Kentucky is amazing. But poor Kentucky. Poor Kentucky's just going to kind of keep getting hit and hit and hit and hit from storms and tornadoes, all of it. The Midwest is going to see some wild stuff because it's clearing the way for the great crack to come. So all of these things that we will be going through between the earthquakes. I mean, right now in Tennessee, they continuously are having earthquakes nonstop. And I was laughing with somebody the other day because I've never experienced an earthquake, like, really, and I don't know how that settles with me just yet, because that kind of freaks me out. I've been through crazy tornadoes, I've been through a bunch of weather stuff, but for the ground to just start moving and shaking. But then I think I was talking to our beloved, Shelly, and she was like, "Oh, it's nothing, Courtney. I've been through a million earthquakes." And I'm like, "What?" That's how we help one another. Because when I'm on the phone with Shelly and we're going back and forth on what we've experienced on this beautiful planet as far as tornadoes, earthquakes, well, hurricanes, stuff like that, maybe a tsunami. I've never experienced an earthquake, and I got Shelly saying, "Oh, it's nothing, Courtney, don't worry about it." She's never really experienced a tornado. I'm like, "Oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it." Right? Like, we can help one another calm our nerves. So, that is what we're in because of the shift, the pole shift. We're up here. We're we are we've passed 12 o'clock. We've passed 12 o'clock. So if we were at 12 o'clock, we're moving. We're moving. I would say right now we're about at we're past 1 o'clock. We're somewhere between 1 and 2 o'clock. And so it's going to be coming. It's going to be coming more and faster and faster and faster between the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the tornadoes. Like I said, we will most likely see some kind of volcanic eruption in the states. And that's just the states. What's going to be happening above is Greenland, Iceland. Whoa, be beloveds. What's gonna be happening out in all the Asian Pacific area, like all of those islands, beloveds, right? Parts of Africa. Um, the so I will present a map at some point. But that's all of the birthing pains. That's all of the parts of the shifting into, not just the prep, but also us. So going back to this concept of, a big breakup between you and an ex, those first few months, it's difficult. Sometimes you don't know to shit, shave, or wind your watch, right? You don't really know what to do with yourself, and it seems like every time something happens, it's a little bit more serious, or you're questioning everything, or you have to completely do 180s to survive. You were living with this partner. Now you got to find a place to live, which probably means a new job and blah, 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 blah. All this massive, almost immediate feeling of urgency to handle what is right in front of you. That is what we're headed into. And we're not even talking about the great crack. We're talking about all the pre stuff to it. So then how does that affect humans? Well, then listen to this. So everybody's been talking about 2032, and some are going to try to reference it as the planetary wise, as in the Great Crack, right? As in the Edgar Cayce map. But others might reference it as something else, like war or what have you. But we've known for a long time, astrologically, like in the stars, we've known from other um we've even known from stories, old prophecies. We've known for quite a while that 2032 is kind of a big shift within humanity. Well, that is not the great crack in what I am being told. That is not the great crack. That is, and I'll read what they told me yesterday, because remember, I confirmed everything again yesterday. I've confirmed this stuff now a few times because I'm not going to put a message out there without, I don't even confirm 3 times. I confirm usually like 5 or 6 times over a course of a long period, which I've been bringing up the great crack for 4 years now. So that's a long period. 2032 is the fall of rigid authority and humanity coming together. social uprising through targeted efforts, economy collapse slash shift, with humans not obeying rules and embracing community. There will be struggle with open-mindedness. So what that looks like is, while we are experiencing big events because of the earth changing, from the tornadoes and the earthquakes and all of the natural occurrences that would be happening anyways, while we're experiencing this as humans, um they will be experiencing fear, they'll be experiencing doubt, but it's as if in the collective, because we're headed towards the age of Aquarius. Remember, communication will be different. Aquarius is all about humanity and community. It will be as if we finally kind of put our stake in the sand or stake in the ground and say, hey, enough's enough. And we kind of already been seeing this in the good ways and the bad ways, right? Take just a couple of years ago when, Asheville, North Carolina, all that damage that went through North Carolina, and the government was not there for them. But we got to see all the humans, all the people contributing, all the people taking care of people. We see it all over the place. When Katrina happened uh, decades ago, I was working for a youth program that was teaching these kids construction skills. We sent them down there. We all that I had to stay back because I was running other stuff, but they went down there and helped. It's humans taking care of humans, and we see that. We see it when it hits. We see how what we think we can rely on is not there. And that is the truth. We have enough evidence backing it up, from not just here in the States, across the board. Across the board, there's evidence from what happened in Rwanda, from what happens in South Africa still to this day, what happens in all over Europe. I mean, what happens in we all know. We live here. That what when we think what we're told is supposed to show up and it's not. Well, we're more educated. We can witness. There's social media. There's this, there's that. That's the negative aspect of the shift that we're entering in, and that we are not even entering anymore. Like I said, we're in it. But then take what just recently happened with the World Cup and all the Europeans coming to the States and going, "Oh my goodness. You guys are nothing like what they tell us you are." You guys, it is actually, I'm not gonna be shot over here. This is not that bad. You guys are actually very nice. Your food is great. Look at this. Look at the vastness. Look at all this stuff. You guys aren't ignorant because they think we're just all ignorant. Um, but embracing each other, embracing their culture, embracing our culture, embracing each other, having fun together, celebration, understand that we're human and we all want the same stuff and we all enjoy a good time. We're experiencing and witnessing, especially through the different forms of communication now, how humans actually interact much smoother, let's say smoother, kinder, more reliable than what the media might project, or certain social networks. That the reality is that if you walked out of your house right now, you'd probably be perfectly fine amongst all the other humans. So, within the fall of the rigid authority and humans coming together, Social uprising through targeted efforts. What that would look like, because it's not like this is not civil war, this is not, revolution, this is not that. I wanna make that very clear, it's not revolution. Targeted efforts, and it'll just happen naturally because we are headed into Aquarius. So, imagine if someone in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm just using the states because I know where I am. St. Louis, Missouri, I don't know, some mom or dad, grandma, don't matter, um, decided that day, "You know what? My kids are no longer going to eat any of this kind of cereal," and we all know what I'm talking about. And they decide that. And they said, "From this day forward, mine are not gonna eat this." And then they do that. And then they're at the playground. They start telling all the other parents, "Oh, yeah. My kid is we don't have it in the house anymore. It's not going to be eaten." Well, then some parent in on that playground goes, "Man, that's such a good idea. I wish more people would get involved in that." Just boycotting. Just stop using it. Just no longer. And then that parent tells others. So all of a sudden, like all of St. Louis no longer eating that cereal. And then that moves into Kansas, Arkansas, down into Tennessee, down to where I am in Georgia, and shit, it's hit Atlanta, and that's a nobody's eating cereal. But it's not because we're posting it all over the internet and we're posting it, um, in the dark web somewhere, or we're posting it on what all these sites are to say we're boycotting cereal on February 5th, No, we're talking as humans talk. We're communicating as humans communicate, one on one, in small groups. We're we're all moving on the same page. And that's just cereal. Now imagine if that started happening in maybe a little bit of bigger circles of things, from healthcare to taxes to all sorts of stuff. Targeted efforts based on the authentic communication because the age of Aquarius is right next door. Targeted efforts. Now, I'm not going to say there's not going to be yes, very structured efforts that will be on social media and will be trying to entice. And it's funny because I can hear the naysayers right now. I really kind of can hear the naysayers saying, thinking there's a bunch of ignorant humans out there or lazy humans, you hear that often, lazy humans that, or everybody's out for themselves, so they're not going to listen to change. No, I don't think so. Not in the current energies that we're in, not in all that we have witnessed and experienced together, even if we were not standing right next to one another in the situation. Um, and people, the majority of people, if it's a good idea and it's for positive reinforced change and shifts, people do get on board to whatever their little capacity is, right? So let's say it's something about the whole food supply chain here in the States and how we process food and how we do this and that. Well, one of those little bits is just cereal. And all it takes is just cereal first. And then it's this over here. And then it's this over here. And then by the time we know it, the whole Coke industry is down. Targeted efforts. So, 2032, fall of rigid authority and humans coming together, social uprising through targeted efforts, economy collapse slash shift, with humans not obeying rules and embracing community. So that economy collapse slash shift. Please do not be afraid of that. Because if they just said collapse, well, okay, then we might talk about it, right? But there's a slash shift, meaning how we operate, how we go into the stores and we buy that cereal. That would all change if we had targeted efforts. That would all start shifting and changing. If we decided to not pay for this and pay for that over there, if we decide to go to bartering, which I've been talking about for 3 years now, if we barter more than paying for goods and services, that would shift things. So it'd be a bit of a collapse if everybody got on board through communication. It would be a bit of a collapse, but it's just really a shift. A shift with humans not obeying rules and embracing community, right? So take that as an example, like bartering. You barter within your community. Everybody has stuff. Everybody has stuff to give. Everybody has stuff that they want literally in your community. You just gotta go outside. You just gotta communicate. You gotta communicate to barter and trade. So think about that. Think about that. There will be struggle with open-mindedness. Edgar Cayce talked about it a lot. Well, not a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. He talked more about Atlantis because people were so fascinated with Atlantis. I will say definitely the boomers, beloved boomers are going to struggle. They're going to struggle when they start seeing that no one's giving a shit what their government says. They are going to struggle with that. They're going to struggle with the new concepts and ways. They're going to struggle with these targeted efforts. They're going to struggle with the shift within the consciousness of humanity, that we don't have to follow the rules and obey, right? Especially if the rules are damaging and they don't show up for you in the first place. So I will say Edgar talked about that a lot, and how he referred to it was that it would kind of force them to do a very deep review, a very, very deep internal review. And I think when we all hear me say that, we can imagine what that actually would be like for them. So they will struggle. They are going to struggle with open-mindedness to the whole process that we're undergoing, because they very much believe wholeheartedly in things, and their ideology. So, and I'm not clumping all the boomers together. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like to even reference the different generations, because the millennials will have a bit of a problem. Other groups, the Zs, the X's will even different reasons. But understand that the reason we do have generations and they come with certain characteristics is because of the energies that were influencing that entire body of people, that collective body of young people growing up at a particular time. So Edgar always talked about the energetic influences, the outside influences from vastly above, let's say, and just all around in our sphere, in our plane, in our governments, in our TV, in our whatnot, all of it. So those do influence an entire body of people at one particular time. Hence why we get certain characteristics within pockets of generations. within generations. So the boomers are going to, those that are still around, and so even some of the older Xers, right? They're going to have issues, because by the time we're really in the thick of this, well, they're in their 60s and they're trying to get to retirement, right? They're trying to desperately get to retirement. And now I'm telling everybody that the whole economy is going to start shifting. We're shifting as a global collective with the earth. And the native prophecies talk about this, about the dramatic physical aspects of what the earth is going to go through from all the different damage that we're going to experience because of what she is going to show us. But it is all in greatness. So the red man and white man can come back together, right? And the destruction and the sadness and the devastation is really because of how greedy and egocentric we have been, causing the separations between each other, between us and the earth, between us and the divine, all of it. We have been doing it. And she's going to put us back in our place. She really is. But because of that, because massive, massive stuff we're fixing to go through together so we can do it. The back end of it, that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. That's the harmony, that's the peace, that's the community, that's the humanity taking care of humanity that the boomers really actually inspired to have, and then things got very wonky. So they're gonna have difficulty. The older Xers are gonna have difficulty in that open-mindedness of, yeah, even if a lot of people are going against authority, but not straight in your face, right? But in subtle ways. And now all of a sudden, all the cereal boxes that we've ever known are gone. They just don't exist because we stopped using them. Uh, that will be difficult on them because it'll be happening fast. True devastation is before the great crack, as others must learn to love and trust. I'm going to read that again because when they told me this is referred to as the great crack, in my mind, as I'm sure everyone else, that sounds like the biggest thing that's ever going to happen to us, right? On the planet entirely. But they just said, true devastation is before the great crack, as others must learn to love and trust. So before we even get to this huge, like, damn, the whole United States is just crack. Before we even get to that, we're going to go through a series of multiple, big, small, and different, major, some minor, all of it, different calamities, different natural disasters, different falls of nations. Humans will be forced to rebalance themselves before the fullness of rebalancing the earth, the great crack. So all this stuff that we are headed into, we're in it right now. I don't want to even say we're headed into it. We're in it right now. Is before the great crack, when all the devastating stuff is going to happen. And it's so those that do have closed minds, gotta open them. Those who do think that their reserves and how they think and who they are and their concepts and their abilities are going to keep them protected and very safe in their little bubble of ego, they have to learn to love and trust one another and themselves. So we are going to be going through a series of trials. It's if you go back to ancient stories, by the way, as I said, this has always been because of the pole shifts. Always has been because of the pole shifts. I was talking about at the beginning, and I was referencing how there are repeatedly tons of ancient stories, scriptures that give the stories of the beginning and the end and the beginning. The most common here in the States is the Great Flood. Prior to that, though, beloveds, there were series of different trials and tribulations. There was different things happening that was all foreshadowing that it was coming. All foreshadowing it was coming. And if we want to be on the other side of when it all goes down, we have to take that devastation and we have to come together and we have to heal one another, help one another, love and trust one another, and be there for the earth. I'm going to read that again. Humans will be forced to rebalance themselves. So, first of all, how many of y'all are out of balance with who you truly are inside? Who you truly are. Take a pause. Just take a pause. Who you truly are. That person that you so wish you could be during all aspects of your life. I wish I could be who I am at work. I wish I could be who I am at home. I could be who I am around family. I wish I could be who I am, that true person, that true soul being. Not them, you. Yeah. If you're not that 24/7, if you're not that limitless, loving, trusting, fortitude, optimistic, if you're not that, well, then I'm going to assume you're in balance. You're not in balance. You're not in balance. Humans will be forced to rebalance themselves before the fullness of rebalancing the earth, the great crack. So if we're at 12, well, we were at 12, now we're at like 1 o'clock from the pole shifts. We're going down slowly, going down slowly. Yeah, when we hit about 3 o'clock, man, all this stuff, boom, boom, boom. I mean, we're going to already experience it, but boom, boom, boom. When we hit 3 o'clock and we have to and we start dropping down and dropping down and dropping down with those poles moving, that's when it's really going to start happening. So I suggest be who you are right now in all times, good and bad, in fair weather and non-fair weather. Just be who you are. This is why you hear so many people talking about be your authentic self, because the authentic human actually cares about their fellow man. The authentic human actually knows how to love and trust, knows how to survive because we've been doing it forever, over and over and over again in all of our lives. So why worry about that? The authentic human is born and living right now for this right now. So they can be here in service, to be in love, to be in the rebalancing of themselves and the earth. And that rebalancing of the earth is the great crack. That's how she's going to rebalance. That's how she's going to go, oh, I've been dropping a whole lot. I better open up some, make this easier on the humans. Make this easier because, man, I've been going through it. They've been going through it. Whew. Years ago, I started referencing this as like she's going through her birthing pains, right? She's having the contractions, and we're feeling the contractions with her. And the Schumann resonance has been crazy. And between her and the sun, and oh my goodness, what are we doing? Right? All this stuff. And it is that. It's like that. It's like she's going through the birthing pains to birth the new earth. And we're here. We're experiencing it with her. We're like right in the delivery room. We're right on ground level with her, right? And so she's going through it. And well, eventually, we all know how babies come, finally get here. There's something's got to open. The levee's got to break. Things got to happen. Things have to be pushed, right? Things have to be pushed. Humans will be forced to rebalance themselves before the fullness of the rebalancing of the earth. So, yeah, we all know what giving birth is like. I mean, either we've witnessed it, we know of it, or we've experienced it ourselves. When will this happen? The great crack, the rebalancing. And we are expected to rebalance ourselves, be in alignment with oneself prior to the great crack. And we are going to be forced. I've been talking about it. And I will tell you, everyone, you are so much beautiful and so much more you're so much more talented, so much more whimsical, so much more beautiful. You shine so much more when you are living your authentic life. When you are living who you are, not some fragmented being. Stand in your totality. It's beautiful. So when is this going to happen? I confirmed again and again. I have been told 2052, the great crack. I've been told that now I don't know how many times over the years, because I kind of don't want it to be, because I'm still going to be here, y'all. That sounds horrible. I know I will be here, and I will be in my 70s, and I'm like, okay, so I got how many years to like help prepare for all this, rebalance. Um, uh, 2052. That has not changed, and I thought it would change. Let's go back to what I said at the beginning. In 2025, they're reading for the yearly Akashic message in 2025. There was a brief sentence in there that said, a cycle will end in 32 years, which would make that 2057. So that makes sense to me that if the great crack happens in 2052, well, that 3 years after the great crack, and we're like, whoa, everything has changed now. Like, we thought we were changing things and we were doing stuff. Now it's the change is here. Well, once again, kind of like when a relationship breaks up. It takes a minute to process and to get our bearings and to figure out what we're doing and feel confident in ourselves again to do it and start communicating with others, especially if we lost all of our friends because the ex has them, right? It takes a process. And that would be 3 years from 2052, the autumn of 2052, by the way. 2052 to 2057, that'd be 3 years. That is that, okay, how are we actually going to come through this? And I've been talking about it for years as to it is the ending and the beginning. It happens at the same time, the ending and the beginning. Now, the duration of time is probably longer than 5 minutes, folks. The duration of time. So the moment, like the great crack would happen in 2052, yeah, those 3 years of us sorting it out and coming together and reshaping how all of humanity pretty much operates based on now all through the next however many 20, 30 years, how many years is it, right? We have time to figure this out. We have time, but it starts now, and it's going to be nonstop devastation, 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 devastation. And only love and trust, you standing as your authentic, beautiful self, are you going to be able to get through it and rebalance yourself so when the great crack happens, it can just take about 3 years for us to go, we got this. And so when I've always talked about the great awakening and the age of Aquarius and the new earth, it was always this matter of, I would reference kind of like, imagine we're all walking this trail. Some are behind, some derailed and are off in the woods doing their own thing for a minute. Some are here, some have been standing at this big awakening gate. That gate has now been opened. For anybody who's been standing outside of it, it is open. You can freely walk through. But that doesn't mean that there's not the walking stops after that. That doesn't mean that that gate automatically opens into this new earth and it's wonderful and glorious. And we entered into the Emerald City, which, remember, that was a mirage anyways. That's not how that works. You walk through the gate and then you really find out who you are. Every ancient story says that. Every story, any story that has any clout to it to this day. You think you knew who you were walking that road to the gate of the awakening, to what is behind it eventually, the new earth. You thought you were learning who you are. You thought, not until the application of who you are truly has to show up, to be forced to rebalance themselves. So, walk through the gate and keep on walking. Because now you're in the mix. And guess what? You're surrounded by a ton of other people that can help. Humans will have 20 years between the fall of the nations to come together in balance. In balance, harmony, and economic restructuring. Let me restart this. Humans will have 20 years between the fall of nations to come together in balance, harmony, and economic restructuring before the great crack forces them to prove their love. Forces them to prove their love. And then they added this. They said, where the rubber hits the road, as people say, as you humans say. That's how they kind of talk to us. Like, this is one of your cliches. You're going to understand this. They left us with that and something at the very end, and I'll add that. I'm going to read that again. Humans will have 20 years between the fall of nations to come together in balance, harmony, and economic restructuring before the great crack forces them to prove their love. So all this while, let's say you walk through the gate. All this while you're walking and whoa, devastation. Okay, we all go and help. Okay, we're back. Whew, that was a lot. Whoa, devastation. Whoa, we're all gonna go help. Okay. Whew, that was a lot. While you are doing, you're gonna have to be forced to love and trust yourself first. Love and trust yourself, then others, then whatever outside influence force that you believe in. That's when the true all the stuff that you've learned, all the things that you've meditated about, all the things that we think we know, and this I'm talking to myself, folks. I'm on this path with you too, right? All this stuff that we think we believe, we think we know, we think this, man, don't you hear all that mental? All that mental. Um, that doesn't mean anything until, well, the rubber hits the road. And that is how we rebalance. That's how we say, yes, we make a stand. This is who I am as an individual. This is who we are as a collective. We actually love one another. And so I asked, okay, so what can I leave everybody with as to like, how do you do this? Like, how do you get through all of the natural disasters? How do you get through the economic collapse slash shift, right? The restructuring. How do you get through the rebalancing? How do you get through the um, acknowledging who you really are and embracing and accepting it? How do you get through all that? And they simply said the prep that humans can do. So this is the prep that while we're living this experience, this 20 years leading into the great crack, while we're living it and doing, this is the prep, right? This is the pre-phase. And the pre-phase, wow. It's kind of like, you know, I always enjoyed the tailgating party much more than actually going into the stadium. It was always more wild and a great time. This is like that effect. Depends on how you view it, great or not. It is the pre. It's the pre-show. It's the pre. So how can we prep through this next 20 years and remind ourselves continuously? Love the earth. That's what they said. Number 1, love the earth. She is your home. Love the earth. Love another, meaning other humans, other people. Love them. Love them. Trust, trust, trust. And they said that 3 times. Trust, trust, trust. And I'm going to end on this. So this past Saturday was the big 250th anniversary of our US birthday, July 4th. I had a big barbecue. And so the week leading into it, I was very busy. I was in multiple stores. I'm talking to a bunch of different people. I'm doing all this stuff. And then there's actually Saturday. I had friends who were really actually in from Chicago. I mean, I had a lot going on, folks. That's why you haven't seen me. But all the while, it was very subtle within a ton of people. A ton of people, but it was subtle. Like you most probably wouldn't have picked up on it. And what I kept picking up on people in very subtle ways, but it was always the same. It's always the same. Is that people right now are, well, they got trust issues. They're struggling with trust. And that could have been the cashier at the grocery store. That could have been some people at the party. That could have been somebody on the phone. That could have been a client. That could have been, it doesn't matter. I mean, beloveds, I mean, I was everywhere this past week. And when I say subtle ways, is because everybody says something, does something, and then they might kind of repeat the same thing. And all of it, with all of them, is they were lacking trust. And of course, that could be trust of oneself, trust of another, trust of the divine. But it was so overwhelming to witness this past week, knowing that this is where we're at, knowing that this could all start rapid firing at any moment. And everybody's struggling with trust. So, knowing that, knowing that they ended it with trust, trust, trust. The one thing I can say there is check in with yourself. Check in with yourself. First of all, do you trust yourself? And not in some like survival tough guy way, like, yeah, I can get through anything. I can do whatever. I'm gonna manage. I can do this. The world's against me, so I can only trust myself. Not like that. That's not what no. Check in with yourself. Do you trust yourself first? Do you trust yourself? And truly be honest. It's not you don't have to tell anybody. So be honest with yourself. And if there's an inkling of, I don't know, I'm not sure, do I trust myself? It might be because you're not living authentically. It might be because you're wearing too many masks or taking on too much stuff that might not be yours to do. We all do things that end up breaking the internal trust within, the trust to self. We all do it from our habits and thought patterns and addictions and um, to our all sorts of things. But we end up breaking that with ourself first. We do it to ourself. Most of the time, everybody thinks that, trust is broken from some outside person. Hmm. I can guarantee you, before that person broke your trust, you broke yours a long time before that. So check in with yourself. And if that be the case, well, that's where we start. We start with self. We find out if we broke trust with ourselves, and then we forgive ourselves for being human. Isn't it grand that it can be that easy? Oh man, I was human again. Oh, geez. I guess I'll do better next time. And we do better next time. We don't have to make it more than it is. Us humans, we are complex and we have faults, right? So it's like, okay, I broke my trust. I'm going to start again. And then start slowly showing up for yourself. And by saying yes and by saying no, by saying yes and by saying no, show up for yourself. And that's how you can slowly start building that trust with yourself again. And then we can move it into other people. And then we can move it into a divine. Um, yeah, normally it's not others. Everybody thinks it is, but normally it's not others. And the people that seem to be more defensive because of their lack of trust, those are the ones that tend to always say it came from someone else. Um, when my eyes have never seen it as someone else first. And I know that's a big pill to swallow. It is. And I mean that as adults, beloveds. There are no children who watch this. So as adults, we take responsibility, right? As adults, we own our own trust and we know that it's our responsibility to build it within. So, and remember, she's going to force us into it anyways. So hey, we'll ride the lightning and hopefully come together, and it's going to be ups and downs and ins and outs, and what a roller coaster. What an amazing experience. We have chosen to be here together and experience this. And that is the great crack, beloveds. Oh, I forgot to tell you what it's going to look like. If you're just now tuning in, thank you to everyone who has tuned in. I said at the beginning, I'm going to print out a map and I'm going to color all over that map like a 5-year-old because that's how I roll. And I'm then going to take a picture of it and post it here. It is very similar to the Cayce map. Like the Mississippi River Oh, yeah, like, so there's gonna be a lot of earthquakes over in California land. California land, that's what I call it. Over there in California area, in the area, because, you got New Mexico, Nevada. I mean, you got so I just call it California land, because I mean, it's gonna the next one that's gonna be, it's like boom up that. So you're gonna have earthquakes there. You even got active volcanoes over there. So I'm not sure which volcano is gonna go off eventually down the road. Um, so we have all this stuff, but the great crack, yeah, beloveds, it's going to feel like the US just cracked right open in that Mississippi River line. And if you haven't actually looked at all the tributaries of the Mississippi, holy goodness. And that's why I also say Kentucky, beloved Kentucky, energetically, it's been getting prepared for this by natural disasters, and it is the magnetic field is actually going to have to pull from Kentucky's energy. Kentucky has energy that there's others in it in this state, but it's like imagine two energies being pulled at the same time because the outer rim of the earth, the magnetic field, has to actually pull from within. So think of things on the, west of the Mississippi and things east of the Mississippi, they're going to have to pull, or she is. She's going to have to open up. And she opens up damn near dead center of the United States, which is going to affect every continent, every island, every land. There's gonna be new land, by the way. Like, right now, the Andes Mountains are rising, by the way, if people don't know that. The Andes Mountains are rising, which okay. Um, there's gonna be lots of land, and people say, like, it's gonna break off into the sea. No, like, land will be um, submerged. But then other land will then be like, "Oh, so the water went this way, now I'm gonna pop up over here, and I'm gonna pop up over here while this island goes down here." It's gonna be a lot like that. That that is gonna be pretty abrupt. That is the great crack. That is the great crack. But we got 20 years of trusting ourselves, loving ourselves, trusting and loving another, rebalancing ourselves, living more authentically, which is of service to humanity and the earth. We got 20 years. We can do this. We can do this. I believe. I believe. And I believe all of you chose to be born and living right now. And if you're alive for that, you chose to be alive for that because you know you can contribute. You know you can contribute in some way. Yes. That's that's what's going down, folks. So, I love you all. Um, Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Centurion Sun. Thank you, Seeker of Truth. Thank you, Lori, for all coming in. I will post a picture in the next few days. I have a lot of computer work in the next couple of days, so I will be right here doing it. And I will post that here so everybody can see where the water will be. I love you all. And there. Y'all have been waiting for like 4 years. We finally talked about it. Thank you for being here, not just at this channel, but also just being here. Thank you for choosing to be here. I love y'all. Cheers. Bye, guys.